evening and welcome to the Wednesday, May 9th, 2012 meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. First item is other business, review, discuss, and vote revisions to Hui Conservation Restriction. Tom?
And I'm going
to let you take over, and I'm just going to back up. This is a little bit of a change.
This information
So
was,
I'm recusing myself from this.
this information was provided to us in our packets earlier this week, and perusing it was part of our charge. And Jen, is there anything that you'd like to add?
You know, there's just been some requested revisions by the state to the CR, and Bob is here to go over those with you. I had him supply you a red line version just to make it easier for you to pick out what those actual changes were. And he will be asking you after his presentation to sign the municipal, sign the document again so we can get that moving.
Thank you. Ms. Delman?
Thank you. I'll be brief. I'm Bob Ament. I'm an attorney. I represent the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. In March, the Conservation Commission reviewed and approved a conservation restriction on 4.5 acres abutting an existing 10-acre conservation property. The restriction is required as a condition of the Cape Cod Commission for a laboratory that's about to be completed at the Quissit campus. When the document was submitted to the state, although it was in the identical form as the document submitted 5 years ago for the adjacent 10 acres, the state made a number of requests for changes, basically documenting further the permitting history and the benefits of the conservation restriction, and imposing a number of requirements, particularly greater review by the Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program for any changes that might be made to the property. Generally, throughout the document, the state asked that it simply be more restrictive. Where the document allowed the maintenance of 8-foot paths, the state said 6-foot paths, and that was the nature of the changes. The area of the conservation restriction area has not changed at all, simply that the rights retained by the Oceanographic Institution have been significantly limited by the state. That's okay with the Oceanographic, so we need to resubmit that. It's already been approved and signed by the selectmen. Thank you.
Are there any questions on the board?
I make a motion to accept it as changed.
Second.
I made the motion.
Courtney,
I made the second.
second. Any other discussion?
If a civil engineer can find the typos, you're in trouble. And there are at least 2 or 3.
Oh, yes, there are. I will correct those.
Okay,
We know there are a few typos.
all right.
Thank you.
If I find them,
It's a long document, and there are a few typos in it.
Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. So moved. Bob?
Thanks, Bob. Okay, next agenda item, request to continue under determination of applicability, Ms. Stover and Mr. Sawyer, 90 Gansett Road, Woods Hole, Massachusetts, for permission to remove and dispose of a failed sewage disposal system and to replace with a new Title V sewage disposal system. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until next week.
So moved.
Second.
Maury? Michelle?
Moore and Michelle? Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, the motion on the table is a continuance to May 16th. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Request to continue under a notice of intent. Federal National Mortgage Association, 233 Gifford Street, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to install native mitigation plantings for an unpermitted wooden deck, to replace invasive plants that have become established, and to remove dump material near the wetland and associated landscaping.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant is requesting continuance until next week.
So moved.
Second.
Any,
Maureen and Courtney.
any questions on the board? From the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none, motion on the table is a continuance till May 16th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Okay, next, request for determination of applicability. The first is Ms. Stover and Mr. Sawyer, 90 Gansett Road, which is continued to May 16th. The next is Kevin and Candace Crowley, 34 Homer Road, North Falmouth, for permission to remove the existing timber retaining wall and steps, remove and transplant the existing vegetation above the wall, install a new poured concrete retaining wall in the same footprint, and replace vegetation. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant has withdrawn their request for an RDA.
Okay, we'll move right along to Olivan Hobby, 52 McCallum Drive, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to remove small trees, remove broken branches, remove maple tree fallen into pond, vista prune, and prune yews and rhododendrons.
Applicant has requested a continuance until next week.
So moved.
Second.
Maury Courtney. Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is a continuance till May 16th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Habitat for Humanity, 55 Glenwood Avenue, Falmouth, Massachusetts, for permission to construct a duplex family home with appurtenances, 10-foot by 11-foot shed, install utilities, connect to a town sewer, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping.
Yes,
Jen.
Mr. Chairman, we reviewed the project and we are recommending a -3 under the state with the resource boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Courtney Maury. Okay, are there any questions on the board? Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, which means they can go ahead and do with what they've asked to do. Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Vacations Resorts International, 134 Minot Road, East Falmouth, for permission to remove and dispose of a failed sewage disposal system and to replace with a new Title V sewage disposal system, remove the existing drainage structure and install a new drainage system and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, we're recommending a -2 under the state and bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So move.
Second.
Courtney Maury, any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
This property has had a long history, and it has quite a few outstanding orders of conditions. And I think maybe we need, at some point, not tonight, but have a discussion on how we keep permitting more parts to these projects, and nothing gets finished from the beginning ones. I'm really not, I know it's a failed septic system, and there's not much you can really do about it, but I was on the board when this system was inspected and supposedly great. It went from a resort to a condominium type, it was a motel, and now it's a resort condominium timeshare type thing, and the use has changed. I went out there, the parking area has increased, it was never permitted, and I don't know what this, how we can address these outstanding orders of conditions, but I don't want to stop the upgrade, because that would be not very prudent, because that's an environmental issue. But is there any way we can attach some to expedite these old orders? It says right in our orders that they have to be, as soon as the project is completed,
Right.
they have to come forward and get compliance.
So we'll send
Well,
a letter.
This is from '93.
We've already met with the applicant's representative, we've discussed the concern, which is why it's all detailed and outlined for you. And I'll have Mark send a letter to the applicant and the representative, requesting that these orders be closed out for compliance.
Well, maybe we should attach that, I mean, I don't know if we can attach it that, you know, before they pull the septic system permit, that, I don't know if we can do that. But there's gotta be some kind of hook, because all they do is they just keep adding, and nothing gets finished. And by not finishing anything, like I say, there's a parking lot there, There was, all sorts of things there that were never permitted. So without compliance, you can't even get mitigation or improvement to the site for the illegal work or lack thereof. Anyway, that was my only concern with this project,
Ed?
not the upgrade.
Yes, I too am somewhat bothered by all of the issues on this property. And I think there is something that we can do, and that is we can vote a positive finding on this request, this RDA request, which would require the applicant to come back with a notice of intent, and that might give us an opportunity to address some of these issues. So that's the way I intend to vote on this particular request for an RDA before us tonight.
Court?
Yeah, Ed, I kind of agree. I'm not sure that's the right vehicle. I agree that we've got to put some teeth into this. A letter, I think, is not sufficient. My feeling that the letter ought to contain an implicit statement if there isn't compliance achieved by a certain date, that there's be an enforcement order.
Yes.
I have one more concern. Under an RDA, we don't see a site plan. I know staff went out, but this is an entire resource area. There's dunes, there's barrier beach, there's all sorts of things going on out there. And I would be inclined to agree with Ed on this one, that maybe this one gets bumped to a notice so that we can see, is it a D night? Are there any improvements to the site with this besides upgrading a failed system? I don't know. There we go.
Mike, are you the applicant's representative?
Yes.
Would you like to say something?
We met with the staff, and we told the staff that we would file a request for a certificate of compliances and identify all the outstanding issues. I think we said the word shortly, so we're under a contract to do that. The septic repair, I think, is pretty innocuous, and it needs to be done. So
Mike?
I would ask you to basically let them proceed with the septic system repair.
Can you also tell us who you are? I know who you are, but,
My name is Michael McGrath.
thank you.
Mike
McGrath.
McGrath. I have a question.
See, not everyone knows who you are, Mike. Yes.
Mike, I
Thank
have a
God.
question. Do you have a, what constituted the failed system there? Do you have something?
No, I don't know what that is. I'm sorry, I don't.
It's been inspected?
Pardon me?
Has it been inspected? Has it been?
I think it's physically failed in a way that there's,
With pumping records or things like that?
I think the effluent come out on the surface. So it needs to be repaired as soon as possible.
How long has this been going on?
I don't know.
Okay, well, you're the representative, I don't know either.
I know, but
That was.
He went
I
out-
do not
he went
know
out and
how
looked
long
and
the
it didn't
system's
look good.
failed.
Okay, well, because again, I don't feel like due to, lack of poor planning, it constitutes an emergency on my behalf.
Well, this is
and-
not an emergency when you
Okay.
file for an RDA.
All right, well, then maybe I'll be.
Does anybody live there, Mike?
I don't know that deep. I don't know.
Presumably, people are there in the summertime.
Obviously, yes. It's a resort. It's very active in the summer, but I don't know how many people live there in the winter.
I have a question for Mike.
Yep.
This is the first time I've looked at the plan, and there's existing leaching pits on site now that are in use, and that's what has failed?
I have to look at the plan.
They were leaching pits. This is 497. It's got history.
There is, labeled on the plan, is 3 leaching pits. It says that they had to be pumped dry and fill with sand, and the septic tank is supposed to be removed from the site, and a new pressure dose system be constructed under the pavement. So, the people didn't hear what I said, I don't think, but the bottom line is the septic repair is in the middle of the parking lot. Leaching pits are perforated concrete cylinders that are 6 foot deep and surrounded by stone. we're putting in a pressure dose flat system, which would provide much better treatment in the long run. And the work is all in the paved parking lot.
Okay, any more questions on the board? Yes. This is going way over a 5-minute discussion for an RDA.
I didn't crack that door open, but it was opened by others, and I'm gonna walk through it. A notice of intent, Jen, if they had, what kind of timeline would that be?
It really is up to them. I mean,
If they had something filed next week?
Then it wouldn't be heard till the week after.
hold up.
Well, don't know
They
that.
filed something by the end of next week.
Oh, no, it has to be
Have to be
You're
advertised.
looking at June 6th.
And I-
You have-
Don't meet May 30th.
Then you have 21 days to issue, and
Yep.
the next thing you know, it's August before
Yeah,
it can be
and
built.
that's-
Well, then
right.
maybe,
And in the end, the reason that I brought that up is that even if this was a notice of intent, the placement of this system does not change.
No.
The physical components are going to be where they are. The other unfortunate history, we're going to have to rectify in a different way. I don't see any true benefit of mandating a notice of intent in order to incorporate other good things. It just isn't, and this would be an extremely, if it's failed, that would be not only environmentally bad, but a hardship for them to endure, to go through on that expanded timeline. I want to just make
I'm
that,
just going to comment, though. I mean, I agree, but how long has they known that this is a failed system?
I
You don't know.
already said I don't know how long the systems have failed. So I don't know.
When were you contacted to start working on this project?
In the last 3 weeks? 3 weeks ago, I believe. Maybe 4 weeks ago. Very recent.
Court?
I think, I agree with Tom. I think we shouldn't link the two. I think these are two separate issues, compliance and so forth. We can put some teeth into a letter. We can tell them that they better have it done by a certain time, or they're going to get an enforcement order. We deal with it that way. But I think if there's a failed system out there, there's a reasonable design, I think we should go ahead and approve it.
Are there any other questions? Ed?
I'll just reiterate, I think the way to get some compliance and bring about some action on this particular case is to require the applicant to come back with a notice of intent. They've had more than adequate opportunities over a number of years to do what they agreed to do. When we gave an order of conditions, there's a condition that says, we'll approve this project if you undertake these certain list of items, which we call conditions. And this particular client has ignored all of those orders up until this point in time. So I feel very, very little sympathy, and I think it's time to let people know that we are serious about what we're doing here. Thank you.
call for the vote.
No,
Oh.
I'm gonna call and see if there are any comments from the audience. Then I'll call for the vote. Okay, last chance for anybody to make any comments? Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination, which would allow this applicant to put in to upgrade the sewage disposal system. And Mike, you can't vote, because you're not one of the 7 on the quorum for this. Just to let you know, in case you were eager to vote. Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept staff's recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
All right, ayes, raise your hand.
Four to two.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Okay, so that motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion that we send a letter to the applicant telling them that they must get their properties in compliance on past orders of conditions by a date certain, and I would ask for staff's recommendation on that. And if not, there would be an issue, an order, what do you call it? An enforcement
Enforcement
order
order.
issued.
Okay, Jen, can you give us a date that you think?
I'd give him a couple, I mean, Mark had a discussion with Mr. Johnson at Holmes and McGrath regarding this project, so I'd give him a couple of weeks, May 31st.
Okay, so we'll put into the letter, into your motion, May 31st?
May 31st,
Do we have a
okay.
second?
Second.
I'd like to add one thing,
Okay,
and I'd like to address it to Mr. McGrath. Real compliance, Mike, not just letters saying my client's in compliance and the staff has to kind of backtrack. Please read the orders and make sure that all the information that the board has requested and passed is submitted, or there is a clear reason why it wasn't submitted. Thank you.
I believe my firm does an excellent job in.
Not just your firm,
requests.
just generally, we get a lot of requests that just come in, so I'm just clarifying.
she
what
was
we're
just
looking
pointing
for.
it out to you, saying that that's what we expect from every engineer who submits a certificate of compliance to us.
Yeah, and we have to sign off.
I
on it.
restate what I just said. that
No, that's fine.
We are very diligent in making sure that our requests are complete. We meet with the staff and we address every issue.
Thank you. That's all
Thank you,
I
Mike.
asked.
Madam Chair, can I clarify my motion? It's not just the request for compliance, it's that it's actually complied with.
You would,
Well, we get one
Well, it
step
may
at a
not
time,
be
Courtney.
complied with. It sounds as if
No,
there
in
might
other
be
words, that
outstanding
staff has gone
violations.
and signed off and said, and given it their blessing.
But they may not, Mike, Courtney, they may not, the staff may not give a compliance if in fact there has been building
True,
above and beyond.
okay.
Okay.
So if there's not compliance, if it's not in compliance, then
There also
Mike's
is a
firm will
backlog
have
of
to
compliance.
File for
have to
permit
file
by
for a
that date.
permit to bring it into compliance.
Because if we don't have a valid order that addresses something and we
Yeah.
need to fix it, we may not be able to do it without a permit. So you're going to get a report on a certificate of compliance and if necessary, a permit application.
That's fair, that's fair.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Ed,
Yeah, Madam Chair, just one more thing. I would like to request that on a future agenda, doesn't have to be next week, but soon, that we have a discussion about some changes in our regulations, whereby we absolutely require that when there are a lot of outstanding compliance issues on a project, that no new permits will be granted until those issues have been addressed and the project and the property has been brought into compliance. The exact wording and language and details of that general concept is something we need to discuss and work out to make sure we come up with something which is fair and equitable. But I think it's something we need to address.
right, well, and it's part of the procedure section, which we're working on now. So that's a valid topic to bring up. Let's plan to do that. Okay, Courtney made a motion, and Moore seconded to send the letter. Is there any other discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to send a letter requiring either compliance or a plan to bring the property into compliance by May 31st? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Okay, continued request for a determination of applicability. Geraldine Klein Robinar, 217 Sipawissett Road and Langley Road, map 3710-015-073A, for permission to vista prune. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the applicant is requesting continuance until May 23rd.
So moved.
second.
Maury, Tom? Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? I have a question. This has been continued a couple of times. Are you still working?
First of all, it was because the applicant did not get the permission of the actual property owner to do the work, and we were going back and forth with the applicant's attorney. and your attorney on the language of the easement. The easement in the deed clearly stated that the applicant needed the property owner's permission. Got that issue taken care of. Now we're going back and forth about the arborist, which the applicant contacted Mark, I believe, on Monday, and requested he meet with the arborist.
Okay.
Today. which
Okay,
is
so progress is
acceptable
being made.
to us, yes.
All right.
We're moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next section is request for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. Okay, first is Donald Apt, care of Toby Lane Association, Inc., Parcel 3A, Knobnocket Trail, map 4101-003A, 000, East Falmouth, for permission to replace 4 existing 6-foot by 10-foot, 4-inch floats with 2 4-foot by 20-foot pre-manufactured floats, remove the existing 2-inch diameter pipes and install 6 tie-off pipes, install a pre-manufactured 6 by 16-foot float terminal T-section and 4 additional 10-inch diameter pilings, and to replace the existing fixed pier section with 50% light penetration material. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I will save any of my questions until after Mr. Gibson's presentation.
Okay. Mike, good evening.
Madam Chairman, good evening. Members of the commission, for the record, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Toby Lane Association Incorporated. I'm joined here tonight by Don App, President, John Fryer, committee member, John White, committee member, and Steve Davino, all on a committee within the association. They're charged with maintenance of this structure, seasonal removal, storage, replacement, those types of things for the Toby Lane Association as a whole. And the Toby Lane Association has membership that have utilized this structure to tie off some small vessels to both sides. Some are tied there as the only boat. Some of them are smaller boats that may be a dinghy or skiff to get to a mooring. So it's a association community dock. The dock has been here for many, many years. In fact, we filed with our application a copy of some minutes. It's attached to your notice of intent. The minutes are from a hearing, or a meeting, I should say, that was held here back in the early 2000s where you reviewed that structure, and that sort of establishes the fact that it was grandfathered. An RDA was processed through at that time. What the association would like to do is some improvement or maintenance by way of replacement of all of the old floats, replacement of some of the decking on the permanent structure, installation of some pilings that would better secure that structure, and then installation of some new galvanized pipes to tie the sterns of these boats to the structure. Basically, the structure exists as a straight dock today with 4 individual 6-foot wide by 10-foot 4-inch long floats, and they're fastened to the ground to the bottom with some galvanized pipes. It's a seasonal structure. It's hauled in the off-season. This section is a permanent pier with typical decking on it. There's a ramp that you gain access from the permanent structure down to the floats when they're installed. So in the off-season, the ramp and floats are removed, and the fixed section remains. And in addition to that, there's some galvanized pipes that some of them are still there, some of them have fallen over from ice. So it's in a state where it really needs to be updated so that it can be used more efficiently, and it's safer, the flotation's better on some new floats, and in fact, the new floats can actually stay in the water year-round. So the new floating system would be, instead of 4 6-foot wide by 10-foot 4-inch long floats with timber decking, would be 2 4-foot wide by 20-foot floats. So those would replace the straight section. Then what the association would also like to do is make a T at the end. That would be another new float that would be 6 foot wide by 16, or 96 square feet. And the purpose for that T is to not have a permanent berth for any boats at all. It's a place for loading and unloading of guests and the things that they may bring with them or take back with them from a boating trip. So there'd be a very limited time where you could tie for loading and unloading, and then the boat would either tie in its position or leave. So that's not a permanent berthing location. But what it will do is it'll make it easier for the association to use the system as a whole. What happens now is there's no real place to tie, so if you have guests coming and this boat's already tied, you sort of have to hover out here and queue up and wait, and then sort of nudge your way in so the bow of the boat's near the end and people load and unload. It's not the best situation. So this would allow them to come alongside, tie, load and unload, and then leave. The system that fastens this floating system to the bottom now is really substandard, so in an effort to make it better, there's a proposal to install 4 10-inch diameter timber pilings, 2 here, 1 here, and 1 here. And those pilings would be non-CCA treated. They would be integral to the floating system. There'd be a hoop hole roller, which is your requirement now for new docks. The current structure is, there's no hoop hole roller system. The pipes sometimes aren't secure as they should be, and sometimes there can be some drift, and seasonally this may not be installed in exactly the same position. The idea here is to buy higher, better technology floats, ones that can withstand ice, keep them in year-round, keep them fastened with the pilings, and then not have to have that seasonal hauling, storage, then rehauling and reinstallation. The existing pipes that are out here would be replaced with more pipes, not pilings. They'd be galvanized steel pipes that could be driven into the ground, and they serve as stern anchors, if you will. The boats that use this, the lengths of these boats vary from 13 or 14 feet to maybe 18 feet. That's as big as you could tie here, and there's historically been like 5 when it's at full capacity on each side, 5 on each side. There'll be no power, no water to this dock. There isn't today. There's no plan to do it in the future. We did a quick analysis of the overall square footage pre and post new dock. The current square footage is just 8 square feet less than this square footage because the existing floats are 6 foot wide, and the proposed floats are only 4 foot, and the straight section is slightly smaller. But when you add the T, the total cumulative area of the floating system is 8 square feet more than what is there today. So we feel as though that's basically the same area, and it is in effect there's an overall improvement to the environment because of the new type of system, the fact that we don't have to haul them, the fact that they have hoop hole roller system, and the fact that the decking for the fixed structure will be replaced with 50% sunlight penetration decking. So with that, I'm here to answer questions, and so is the subcommittee.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Jen?
Mike, can you submit the Chapter 91 license for this?
There is no Chapter 91 license. That actually would
Why
be,
not?
well, because the next step would be to go to Chapter 91 after this is reviewed.
I thought that was the next step back in May 24th of 2006 when we got the RDA. I thought that was the whole point of getting the RDA, so they could go forward with the Chapter 91 license.
I don't know that history. I didn't see that in the minutes. But the fact of the matter is, it does need to be licensed, and it's currently not licensed. It's permitted through the town, but not licensed through the state.
It's grandfathered through the town.
It's grandfathered through the town.
Okay. You said 5 boats more on each side of it, and the boats range from 13 to 18? Even if you do 13 feet, the lowest range you gave us. 5 on each side, 65 feet, they're in the peat layer if they do that.
I disagree.
Use the scale. 65 feet puts you right into the peat layer.
The boats.
No, they're bow to stern. They're perpendicular.
Oh, okay.
They're perpendicular.
All right, sorry. Okay, I thought they were common. All right, and I'm really concerned about not having Chapter 91. The only other thing the board should consider is whether the T at the end, I'm uncomfortable with the thought of that you have to view that whether or not it's an enlargement of the existing dock, and if it is, you have to apply your new standards or your current standards. And the high needs to know how comfortable the board is with the statement that that will not be a permanent mooring area for a boat, because it's there, they come, so. And I do not want to hear that it would be an enforcement issue, because I'm really tired of hearing that, so. Other than that, I'd like to see this licensed as soon as possible, Mike, if the board approves this notice of intent, because I was, in '06, I remember this organization coming before us, and I do believe if I go back and look at that RDA, there are statements to get that Chapter 91 license in place, and if it hasn't been in place now, yeah, it's just a little upsetting. So, but other than that, I mean, it does need to be upgraded. This is how they're using it, then something should be done to better protect the environment, so.
Okay.
I just carefully look at the terminus area.
Okay, who has this one?
None of them were assigned last week.
Oh, none of them were assigned. So I'll start with you.
Awesome. Walking out there, one of the things is driving into that neighborhood, I noticed there's some really small cottages. I thought that was really cool. You don't get to see that very often. And there's a cluster of cute little things. There's some larger ones there too, but it was kind of intriguing to see the little ones still there. And walking down the trail, the existing path to the community dock, I didn't see a whole lot of overuse or widening of a path. There was notification on sensitivity at the beginning of the trail, so I think the people are very aware of what they have. Not reading or knowing of the history other than what I read in the minutes and the application back in 2006, and thank you to the board members who are still here. An existing dock, community. The minimizing of the piles, I think that's a creative way to get out of the more disturbance. The salt marsh and 50%, that's always a good thing. The 8 square feet, I'm looking at it as a wash because it's a community dock. It's not an individual. It's, form follows function. If you make it function well, it'll be used appropriately. If it's not accommodating, then it gets abused. I think this is a good way to address embarking and disembarking. The tie-offs, I noticed that they were in there. I want to be happy and know that people are going to do the right thing. And all outward impressions that I've had walking through this area, I'm encouraged. But there's always the one that doesn't listen. The bottom of the float, you say will handle ice. Do you have a manufacturer of that float? Is there any literature that you might be able to provide for the record so that it's something that we can?
Through you, Madam Chairman? There's a couple that they're considering. They haven't selected one, but they're competitors, and their literature does claim to be an all-season floating system. I could submit the ones they're considering, or I could submit a copy of the one, if this were to be approved, I could submit a copy of what they actually select, so you'd have the exact one that they're using.
That would be, the materials being used would be the one that I want to have for the file.
The ones they've been looking at are similar to what was installed at the Green Pond Marina. They actually have sunlight decking on them, and the flotation system allows the ice to, it can withstand the effects of the ice.
Okay, the condition, that's what you said, and the condition can be that it has to have a float of that kind, and then when you choose it, you can submit to the file
Right.
which choice you have.
That's about all I got.
Ed?
May I, please? Yes, thank you. Yeah, if I will, you've often heard me, and you heard me tonight, talk about RDAs and lack of enforcement ability with RDAs. And as Tom was speaking now, I was just looking over his shoulder, and he's got the minutes here of our year 2006 meeting when this project was discussed. And let me just quote something from the minutes. Quote, Mr. Schmidt said that since the issue involves an RDA, no conditions can be imposed. If conditions are warranted, a notice of intent is needed, he added. Unquote. So, that was 6 years ago. I'm pleased to know that I've been very consistent over the years. And I guess in regard to the issue here of the lack of the Chapter 91 permit, and that's still an issue, we approved this under an RDA 6 years ago, and one cannot condition an RDA by definition. And therefore, it's up to the applicant to make their own decision on whether they choose to follow on verbal agreements or not. But there is no enforcement power, no legal reason why they would have to do so under an RDA. I feel somewhat vindicated, one might say, that this is reinforcing the kinds of situations one can anticipate when we're a little bit too quick sometimes and too eager to go ahead with an RDA, trying to get something done without a lot of fuss. But where there are issues outstanding that we feel need to be addressed. I just want to emphasize that. If there's additions, if there's situations that need to be addressed, if we really want them addressed, we have to go forward and require the notice of intent. On this particular project before us tonight, I think perhaps a condition of our approval of a notice of intent would be that in some period of time that the Chapter 91 license is at least applied for. We can't guarantee that it will be approved, but we should require that it be applied for within some kind of specified period of time. Thank you.
Okay. Court?
Do those minutes at all specifically reference Chapter 91?
No.
No.
No, they don't. Okay.
Just because it's not in.
Yeah, I'll second Ed's point. I think either the if we go ahead and approve it, the project should be conditioned that a Chapter 91 a license be issued before the work can proceed. Other than that comment, I have no questions.
No questions.
I have a couple, Mike. In DMF, which is not boilerplate, by the way, I read 5 different ones, and tonight, this one from DMF has nothing compared to the last ones last week. It was very specific. One of the things I did notice right off is when DMF usually gives us a letter, it means they have a concern, and usually it's shellfish or eelgrass. Yet I do not see on your plan that it says land containing shellfish. It just says land under the ocean, so that would need to be put on the plan. The second thing is that there's absolutely no soundings underneath your new float in the mooring field. You don't even have a mooring field shown, actually. You just have a float shown. So we would need that. And do you have DEP number?
Yes.
Okay. You said that it's did you say it was a reduction in size?
No, he said an increase of 8
Increase
square
by
feet.
8 square feet? I have 136 square feet more. Because you said it was, I mean, I'm just reading your plan, you're replacing 4 6x10, so that'd be 120 square feet. I'm sorry. You're right.
240.
240. I'm sorry, you were right. I'll give you that one.
6 foot by 10
Can we
foot
put
4
that in
inch.
the minutes, bold letters?
No.
No.
The 10, but then we'll go to the pilings, because there's an increase in the pilings from 10 inches from 2.5 inch pipes.
In the I think I've said in my, is it okay to speak now?
Yes. I mean, you can answer
Yes,
her question.
Yeah, I believe did I say there's 4?
4 10 inch
So-
pilings.
Yeah, which equals 2 square feet of bottom area total.
And then what are the pipes?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't do the math on a 3-inch diameter.
2.5 inch.
Okay, well, it's something, maybe it's half a square foot, I don't know.
Well, you know how I feel about driven pilings. They have no disturbance to the bottom.
I think I do.
Yeah, you do. And my concern is totally the Chapter 91 license. If this dock is totally different than what was grandfathered. No shellfish survey had to be done. And with DMF's concerns, I am concerned that the intensity of use will increase. If you build it, they will come. Public access, Mike, because Chapter 91 is going to want it, and you don't show any on this plan. If you're going to go for a Chapter 91 license, which I would.
Well, maybe I should put your mind at ease on that. We cannot put this dock in legally without having a Chapter 91 license. The new dock, a building permit wouldn't be issued by the town to install the pilings if you don't have a Chapter 91 license. So the very next step is to get this approved by the selectmen. The very next step after that is to get a Chapter 91 license.
Right.
So we will be definitely applying for a Chapter 91 license.
Which does have to have public access, so.
Yes, so that being said, the way that DEP, Division of Wetlands and Waterways, has historically acted with existing docks that don't provide the typical public access that you get for new docks, which is underneath. You post signs that alert anyone that is fishing, fowling, or navigating that they can go up and around on foot if they need to.
Over the salt marsh.
Yeah. Unless, the only alternative would be to
Increase the height of the dock.
install a new permanent dock that is taller or little side stairs, which both I think are more of an impact. You can never assume that the public doesn't fish, fowl, and navigate here. They do, but I don't know that there's very many people that would be walking along the shoreline here. But that's why the DEP recognizes sometimes that there's obstructions due to older docks, and they require you to post signs. That's their typical way.
So Jen, I have a question for you. So this dock did get licensed as a grandfather dock by us?
Not licensed, it was
Permitted.
issued an
Permitted.
RDA.
Permitted.
And the pictures and all the things that we were asked for in those minutes were documented and submitted?
I think the board should incorporate the
Old,
RDA into,
that's what I was just gonna recommend, the old records into the file.
I do not know if the 91 photos were submitted.
And then the other question I have, Mike, these are gonna stay in. What is the ice issue there?
Ice is always a potential problem. We don't have power, we can't do bubblers. Unless, there's no power to the site.
Well, this is what I'm saying. So these are the issues that if you can't have power for bubblers there, now we have more, I mean, we have non-seasonal, we have permanent floats.
Mhm.
And with ice in there, they become a potential hazard. Is this in a V zone?
No,
No.
No,
A,
okay,
11.
I didn't look.
I'm not sure
Yeah,
what we
I think
mean by
that's-
hazard, well, how the floats would be a hazard.
When they get broken loose from ice. Not a
Well-
hazard, an environmental issue.
Well, I guess what I'm
Because then
saying
they get
is-
blown up onto the salt marsh.
It's not our expectation that the ice would cause that to happen. I mean, a properly driven piling can withstand most, if not all, some of the most very extreme winters where the
Do you
entire
have
pond.
documentation for that?
I have
Or is it the
my
breast height water thing?
experience. I have my experience.
I'm just concerned with it, I mean, not being a fixed pier. And this is why if this came into us as a brand-new dock, it would be done to a standard that would protect the environment, which would be that it would be not, we would know the shellfish impact that we have. We would know, well, we would be able to maybe make it better.
But what we're saying is this is better. And it's up to you to decide if the evidence we provided to you demonstrates that it's better.
Yeah, this is what's
Okay.
in front of
Yeah, I
us tonight on the table.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike?
Walking, I guess it's a comment more than anything else, walking the dock, the depth of water at about low tide corresponded very well with what you're showing on the bottom and the depth at the end. So while we may need depth, I don't think you're going to have any problems getting that. Your comment on ice jacking, depending on the pile and the location and the tide, jacking of those piles can be a real problem. Maybe it isn't your experience, but we've certainly seen it.
What I have experienced for sure is that single pilings are susceptible to ice uplift if they don't have the other one in the cross bracing. And in severe winters where the entire pond would freeze up, you have that issue of ice uplift. I would think if that occurred, maybe more than 1 or 2 seasons, and the cost associated with redriving a pile, coming back here for permission, I think that what you'd find is that someone in the association, one of the abutters, they might work out something where they could get power here to get bubblers to it. But I don't know that until we experience that and it becomes something of an ongoing problem. I think the expense and the issue with getting power there is more significant than a potential for ice uplift. If the most motivated people to not have to pay to have someone come back and drive pilings if the ice takes them up are going to be the association. I think if they do it once or twice, they're going to say, time out, we need to put a bubbler in.
But at that point, Mike, then you're asking to trench those salt marsh to get power out there, correct?
No, we'd probably do it overland,
Overland.
temporarily overland, but we
So you're
hadn't.
gonna have a temporary
This
power
isn't-
system for a.
This isn't on the
So-
table. This isn't on the
No,
table.
No, what I'm saying, Madam Chairman, is you permit this, there's an ice problem. This organization, the homeowners association, will be back to put in power over land. Now, can power over land, and I need help with this, Tom, Courtney, can power over land be provided for a permanent structure like that to supply the bubblers? Yes, no? I know it's not on the table, but this is the situation you might get into. You need to Maury raised good points. If this is gonna be, if you're going from a seasonal structure and you're going to a permanent structure, non-seasonal in all the time, these are issues that this board's gonna have to address and look at and question. So, can it happen, Tom? I don't know.
I would say that at that point in time, whenever they came in,
Yeah.
because the electrical code is always updated,
Okay.
that would be something that I do not want to venture.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
I guess that it's above my-
Is it, can you do it now?
I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm not familiar with the electrical
Okay,
code on that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not-
Tossing that out there, I don't know. Okay, and I do have actually one more question, Madam Chairman, when everyone's done.
Okay, but everyone's not done.
No, I know.
Mike, are you done?
One more question? You're comfortable you can get the equipment in to drive those piles?
Yes, in fact, I can tell you that I've interviewed 2 dock builders. I have another hearing tonight, and I was asked to do that. Both dock builders said that the average draft of their barge loaded is 18 inches, and they boom can reach 20 to 25 feet. So I believe that working with the tides, that even maybe not even, definitely working with the tide, you can reach to install that most landward island right here. This is 2 feet of water, and with 25 feet, the barge would be in 3 feet of water.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay, Ted?
Madam Chairman, Mr. Davino has some.
I haven't
info.
asked my question.
Oh.
And then we'll let Mr. Divino go. I just want to say that the proposal that's in front of us tonight, to me, is an improvement over what is existing there, and it's with the sort of spirit of the grandfathered, replacement of grandfathered docks we've had before. I think this is going to be a better dock. I think it's going to provide better access for people there from the float at the end, so people can come in and out. So I just wanted to make that statement. Sir?
Good evening. Stephen Davino. I reside at 29 Toby Lane, just adjacent to the area where this dock is being proposed. I've been a homeowner there for 3 years now. I wanted to address what Jennifer's thoughts were about powering in the event that we should have a problem where we might need aeration in the area. I've had my electrician go through some of the possible ramifications of this. We can provide power from my home overland, okay, using a specific type of cable, which is basically restricted to use overland, UV protected, basically capable of carrying about 40 amps, which is what we would need to drive a set of bubblers, in essence, to facilitate this type of situation. I'm fine with that. If it came down to that, we would certainly go ahead and, with the permission of the board, would provide the power and the resources to provide aeration in that area, should that be an issue.
Let me just ask you a question. Is this
Yes.
a cable that could be put out seasonally?
It would put out seasonally.
So
Yeah.
it would be put out in the middle of winter when
Exactly,
it wouldn't be
Yeah.
an issue?
right, yeah. And I've cleared this with my electrician and some engineers. I myself am an engineer. I'm also an environmental engineer. I'm very cognizant and aware of the situations and sensitivity in this area. And I think, speak for all of my neighbors here, that, you know, we're trying to push this project ahead because we have a dock situation that essentially is kind of unsafe. I mean, the floats now, if you were to stand on one side of it, your ankles are really underwater. It really needs some improvement. I think we're very, very attuned to the fact that, you know, this area in itself should be preserved. It's a beautiful area. I bought there specifically because of that, you know, and I'd like to preserve the integrity of the area. I have actually gone ahead and set up pilings and some restrictions in that area. We've had some trespassers and some problems and some associated problems going forward with poachers and people trying to launch boats in the areas. So we've now cordoned off the areas. We've set up granite posts last year and chains to keep people out of the area. So we're aware of the situation. You know, we're just looking for a favorable outcome here. And I think that everybody here has a vested interest in maintaining the stock going forward, and they take very good care of this area. You know, we have a lot of very responsible people. Unfortunately, in the off-season, there's only a couple of permanent residents. It's very hard to police it, which is why we've taken these steps. But I'm aware of the situation, and I can assure you that, you know, we would be in compliance, stay in compliance, and would police this area. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Jen, you have a question.
How many members do you have in your association?
There are 12 members of the
members.
association.
Sir,
Four
sir,
of us live there year-round.
sir,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you have to give your name.
I'm Dr. Donald Apt. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association and been on that lane since 1938, so I have an even longer vested interest than Steve just described for this property.
And Dr. Abt, you said you have 12 homeowners, and do you have a wait list for your?
No.
No wait list? for
Most of the
your-
families have all been there since the 30s.
Okay.
It's been a very closed community. It looks just the way it was when I was a little kid.
It is a
Pretty
lovely area.
But-
It's a lovely area.
Oh, it is.
There's
It's,
a reason why I'm asking.
we've worked very hard to keep it the way it has been all these years. And as I say, there are 4 of us that live there year-round. And as Steve mentioned, keeping an eye on things is not always possible. That's why we have the areas chained off in the wintertime to keep people from abusing the area.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions?
I just
on
have
the
one
board?
more. Mike, the DMF, they did ask for a ratio of 1-to-1 for the height above the salt marsh. Can you
Yeah.
do that?
Not without rebuilding the pier. They're kind of misquoting a Army Corps of Engineers reference. You know, when it says that, you know, it should have a height at least as great as the width. If we were rebuilding that, we would definitely do that. And we wouldn't have to be talking about lateral access around it, but we didn't want to go through the expense or the additional disruption of disassembling a relatively good fixed portion, putting in new piles, making it higher, when it doesn't have sunlight decking on it now. So we're trying to do, you know, something that's reasonable and do the sunlight decking. And the only way we could do it more would be to rebuild it and make it taller.
Okay. I mean, I'm happy with the decking being sun penetration 50%, but if at the time, I mean, you're pretty much rebuilding over half of it right now. Am I correct?
Yeah, but that's just simply
Different.
pulling old floats and buying new floats and floating them into place.
Swapping the floats.
And driving the pilings to
And then all you're gonna do is take the decking off and put the sun grate down.
Yeah, so
So
that
when we
leaves,
go out there will be new cross braces in the dock area?
there shouldn't be.
Okay,
If there is, then that would be.
well, maybe at that time you could come back and think about raising it up for better light penetration. What happens, it's not just the light, but I've noticed over the years that like the sea lettuce and everything that gets caught in the cross members hangs up and it creates, you know, because it doesn't come in and out with the tide, and the seaweed catches up and it starts to suffocate the marsh too. So that's another reason why the 4-foot gives a little better flushing under it instead of everything hanging up underneath there.
Mhm.
But it is a beautiful spot, and I'm glad to see a community dock.
Yeah, that's another
That's a big plus.
nice benefit. Any other questions on the board? Are there any questions or comments from the audience? Yes?
I just wanted to make a comment.
What- And you may, but you have to go up and tell us who you are.
I'm Pam Fryer, I'm John's wife, and John Fryer is actually the dock master. And I'm speaking tonight because he is ill. He has an ear infection. He's had 2 mastoid operations in each ear, so he's like partially deaf tonight. So I don't mean to be rude, but I've been whispering to him because he needs to hear. He doesn't know what's going on.
You've been doing it quietly.
Normally
I would have kicked you out.
But I just wanted to say, know that Jennifer, is that her name, had mentioned the use of that T on the dock, and I just wanted to assure you that you know, we police it really, we're adamant about it all the time with everybody. And all families, we're really well-behaved. Our kids, I mean, John and I have been there for 26 years and brought our family up there, and the kids know what's acceptable and what isn't. Now they're grown, they're not around, but, you know, everybody's really, really careful. And actually, we just want that teeth so people can come back from the island or whatever and just unload and load your picnic baskets and boogie boards or whatever you have that's going in the boat, fishing gear, that sort of thing. I mean, nobody ever stays there because we don't know when the next person's going to need it. So we just, it's not a mooring area.
Why do you think I asked if you had a wait list for your dock?
Well, it's not an issue, you know.
Turn
Yeah.
it into a docking space for someone on, if you had a wait list.
No,
for a dock.
no,
And I know
it's-
many associations in town do have wait lists for their
Yeah,
community.
it's not
docks.
allowed within our association. You know, it's just one spot per family. So it's never, and a couple families, they have their own docks, so
And that's fine, that's
it's
why I
minimal,
asked the
yeah.
question,
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to
Everybody
say.
has the absolute best intentions, and I understand that.
I did have a
But
question too, though.
sometimes-
I don't know what Chapter 91 is.
It's
It's a different
state
part of Mass
regulation.
general law.
Okay,
It's a state regulation, that's another license you need for your dock, so.
okay,
The
because I had asked
association
him
is
to.
gonna have to go forward, which is why back in 2006, I believe they came forward us to get it permitted. In order to get a Chapter 91 license, you have to have some sort of local permit or acknowledgement that the dock is okay with the local law, with the municipality. So it's another step in the association's process to get this structure out there absolutely completely legal. And it's a separate application that's filed directly to the Waterways Division of the state, and Mr. Borselli can help you
Yeah, he
do
does
that.
all that. Yeah, okay, I just didn't know what that was.
It's just another step to simplify your life.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Okay, Mike,
One
Maureen has
last
a question.
question. Mike, there are two paths through the salt marsh, one to the dock, and the other one, what is the use of that other path?
Dr. Apt again. For many years, there was a small beach that the children used at the end of that pathway. As the children have grown up, we all get older, I think, the beach has been completely taken over by marsh grass again. So there is no longer, so you rarely have any access down that pathway. There, once in a great while, at a low tide, somebody would go down to walk into the beach, but there is no beach anymore. That path has been there since the early 30s. That was the original area in 1930 that was access to the water.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does anybody need any more information?
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement?
Second.
We're not gonna put land containing shellfish anywhere?
That he can submit.
Who seconded?
Michelle? Jen?
And no more field?
Well, it's not a mooring.
Well, there isn't a mooring field.
Mooring, okay.
There isn't a mooring field, so,
No, I understand where you're
Okay.
going, Lori, that's why I asked
Okay.
the question. I don't want that to turn into another space for the boats, because that would be an expanded use of that dock and trigger one more thing into your red.
Okay.
are there any other questions from the board? Any other questions or comments from the audience? Motion on the table is to close this hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Mike. Okay, Federal National Mortgage Association, 233 Gifford Street is continued until May 16th, next week. And now we have Falmouth Yacht Club, Inc., 0 Clinton Avenue, map 46B0201700A, Falmouth, for permission to allow ongoing beach maintenance activities that include grading, cleaning, and screening beach sand above mean high water, deposit 600 cubic yards of sand for beach nourishment, and the associated grading and landscaping. Jen? Mike, I hate to tell you this, but I am not the only one who went out there and did not see any stakes.
I understand that. Yeah, I got a call.
Well, you got a call when I went in and said that I just came in out of the rain.
Mhm.
But my fellow board members also had the same experience.
What?
I don't want to hear
Yeah,
this
goodbye,
without
yeah.
a stake in the field.
When did you have it scheduled?
I was in a restaurant when you called, so I don't know.
And I apologize
Who
for
saw stakes there? Did anybody see stakes?
flags in the grass. Yeah, that wasn't, yeah.
But you don't know what they were for.
No.
I mean, like, you usually,
I was there,
it was surprising when Beth came in.
I went on Thursday and Saturday, and I didn't see either, like,
Well, it's,
Can we hear it next week? Jen?
Can you get a stake?
I was,
You absolutely can hear it next week, is whether you decide to continue it to next week.
I don't think the board is inclined to do it.
Next week,
Unless, I mean, if the board wants to hear it. I'm getting,
I should excuse myself. I'm a member of the yacht club, so.
oh, all right.
I mean, the plan was thorough, but without it in the field, Mike, I mean, it means that abutters, nobody could go out, if abutters wanted to go look at it. So I'm inclined to continue it till next week and give us the opportunity to go out and see where you're proposing the work. And that's a requirement of everybody, so.
I didn't even see a sign, Mike.
all right,
Yeah.
it was supposed to have been staked
And I don't doubt that it was, but,
day-
you know.
at the day after it was filed. It was
And I
scheduled.
don't doubt
I-
that.
somebody
Lisa
pulled them out.
did it for you. I don't know what happened to this day.
So Mike, would you like to ask for a continuance to next week?
Ask for a continuance till next week so that the project will be staked, it won't be staked tomorrow, the day after Friday. I don't have anybody available to stake it tomorrow.
Okay, that's fine.
So then we could get out this weekend to see it.
On
That'd
behalf
be
of the
good.
applicant, I make a motion for a continuance for 1 week.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Did you get that one? All right. So you're catching on. Good job. Okay, next week, May 16. Continued request for a hearing under a notice of intent. David Wald, 1 Quinnapoxet Avenue, Falmouth, for permission to remove the existing concrete walls and pillars and to replace the new fieldstone wall, fieldstone risers, and bluestone tread stairs, to remove 2 separate sets of steps, install a fieldstone patio with steps, a pervious driveway, plantings, utilities, to construct and maintain a balcony and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, this was continued so the applicant's representative could provide the board with the, I believe it was a landscape plan or a revised plan depicting how the grade in front of the property was going to change to accommodate the egress.
Yes,
Oh,
for the record, Matt
quorum-
Costa.
Hang on one second. Your
It's-
quorum is Ted, Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom, and Ed. So
Good
Mike,
evening,
you're on
Matt.
quorum.
Good evening. For the record, Matt Costa. We were asked to add grades to the patio, grading around the patio and the retaining walls. We submitted a revised plan. I have some copies here in case anybody didn't get it in their packet. There's still no impacts to the resource areas. Project's worthy of your approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
Matt, did you provide a film count? I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yes? No?
No. There's no bill being added to the site, there's gonna be some extra overburden from the installation of the septic system, and it's just gonna be relocated to where the patio is. We're not bringing anything on site.
Oh, okay. I had asked for the cut and fill counts.
Sure.
Actually, Ted and Mike and I asked for me cut and fill counts and then that's given.
I could provide you a quantity of what's moved over there.
That's fine, those guys are okay, that's fine.
This was the concern. This is gonna be filled to.
Ted?
Yeah, just, the fill, I mean, the existing 36 runs through the house. Now this 36 is coming down towards the 34. Well, you can see it's a big dark line, 36. So that's where you're gonna make up from the existing 34 to get up to, so you can put in, you're gonna get 3 feet up to the beginning of the steps. And then you got 38, 35, 39, 40, 55, yeah. So he's got that, and then he's got another 1.5 foot up into the house.
Oh, so it's gonna be from here.
Yeah, there's stairs coming
Stairs.
up, off the patio,
This will be long.
little landing to the house.
So I have 3 steps up to the house. That makes sense now. But so this is,
There's gonna
The
be
fill.
regrading there, yeah.
and we're right on the edge of our zone,
Okay.
but.
You have all the-
I can't give you the calculation what that is, but it is.
Do you have all the information you
Yes.
need?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any questions from the audience?
Are we gonna make sure, just so that it's not blindsided during deliberation for irrigation and stuff? Because that's lately not been anybody very happy about that. So I just wanna make you realize that we allow you to put temporary irrigation in for the plantings, drip irrigation, but the lawn will be Falmouth-friendly lawn throughout Talent Fescue with no irrigation,
No permanent irrigation.
no permanent irrigation.
Make a motion to close and take it under advisement.
May I have a second,
Second.
please?
I make a motion to close.
Tom Maury. Close the hearing and take it under advisement. It's the motion that's on the table. Last chance for questions, comments? All in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, good night.
Good night. Mary Ellen Malloy, 47 Penzance Road, Woods Hole, Massachusetts, for permission to repair and maintain the existing stone groin by filling voids with chink stones and repairing the seaward steps and the concrete cap walkway that includes widening the walkway to 6 feet and replacing the handrail. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, the board had asked Mr. McGrath to provide some information on the construction methodology, the construction access, the handrail, and that has been done, so I'll save any additional comments until after Mr. McGrath's presentation.
And the signs about public access. That was also done.
Public access.
Mike? Would you like to say anything?
Of course. My name is Mike McGrath. I'm a professional engineer and professional land surveyor. I've worked for the firm of Holmes and McGrath, and we prepared the plans, and we have submitted supplemental information in response to concerns brought up at the initial public hearing. This is the concrete that's going to be placed, and I wrote in the letter that we'll put matting down on this portion because this has been a construction access for the repair of the riprap and the repair of or renovation of this house. So we believe that this surface is suitably strong to support a concrete truck. It'll take about 3 loads of concrete from a cement mixer truck down here. We'll build a pump. We'll take a concrete pump and pump the material out on top of the walkway. So we've put down a complete construction methodology that describes that in greater detail. There's about 25 cubic yards of concrete required to build the walkway the way that we show it. There's a note on the plan that if they spill any concrete, they will remove it from the site and dispose of it in a suitable location. There's a warning not to spill any concrete in the resource areas. The handrail on the license, we're putting it in the same location. We're not extending it any landward. There is the license, I quoted the license that says there's supposed to be a sign at each property line, so we added that. The license allows lateral access. Somebody mentioned in the hearing that these steps are for Chapter 91. They're not. The public can pass and repass over this area, and there is a gap in the handrail, or was a gap in the handrail, so that they can traverse at that point. So I think I've answered all of the issues that were brought up at the initial public hearing. I stand ready to answer any questions.
I have a question, Mike. Remember we were talking about replacing those steps, and you were talking about a special kind of concrete?
Yes.
Is that the same kind of concrete that's going to be used on the top? The marine concrete that could go underwater?
I believe it is.
I mean, presumably that
Yes. That will be a wash at times.
Yeah.
In fact, I've seen it a wash.
Yeah, and a storm it certainly would be. Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
I just want to, Tom had made a request that the fluids not be biodegradable or something, remember?
Yeah, if they were gonna bring something down
Down
to
there.
it, the
Okay.
piping, the
yeah.
hydraulics on it, where the upland on the machine
You're
and the
okay.
pump, I'm okay with it.
And the only other thing in the notes was that in the staging area where you're going to have the slurry, when they're cleaning out the equipment, that you have, just either a biolog or something, a circle, so the slurry stays in there when they wash out the equipment. So that was just, that we'll do in deliberation, but just so you know, that will.
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. Those are
I
just in
use
the notes.
generic words.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't use the
Yeah.
specific.
Okay. Everything that was in the question.
Are there any questions from the audience? And I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Maury, Tom? Final chance for questions. Okay. All in favor of the motion on the table, which is to close this hearing and take it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike. Okay, Paul Janke, 194 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, for permission to replace two 10-inch existing pilings and to install two new 10-inch pilings.
I believe I recused myself last time.
You did.
Chair.
Would you like to do it again?
I am going to do so.
Okay. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any comments after Mr. Borzell's presentation.
Is this one open? Mike?
Yes, it was also Nita Farman.
It is Ted, Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom, and Ed.
Mike, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For the record, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant, Paul Youngkin. This is a continued...
And Courtney, I'm sorry.
This is a continued hearing. A couple weeks ago, we had our initial hearing, and the applicant had proposed to install two new tile pilings on the south side and to replace two existing pilings on the north side that were, there was a neighbor who said that they were her pilings and she was concerned that the idea was to replace those with new pilings, but I guess there was a miscommunication. They have historically been shared by both parties, but the plan has since been revised to not replace her pilings, but to proposed to have 2 new pilings on the south side and 2 pilings on the north side for the applicant to use. And the abutters pilings will be left alone. We continued the hearing after some discussion for a couple minor things. I don't think we had a DEP file number, and there was a question as to some of the performance standards for the barge, and I alluded to those at the last meeting. I think it was Commissioner Hollowhawks who wanted information on the barge's capabilities, and I wrote a letter to you. Does everyone have this letter dated May 2nd? Okay, in the letter, I put in words what those performance standards are that were given to me by 2 dock builders. The barges that install these residential docks are typically draw 18 inches of water. They're smaller than your more industrial size barges. And they have a small pile driver with a boom on it that can reach about 20 to 25 feet. So again, in this case, the barge can be in sufficient water depth to install these pilings. So I give you that information in the form of that letter. The balance of the letter is just a further explanation of why we believe the pilings are justified and what the current situation is and why we believe that they won't have a significant impact on wetland resources. And I'm not going to read the letter, but I'd basically like to paraphrase. We talked about the difficulty in keeping the boat secured so that the gunnel doesn't shift underneath the dock and damage occurs to the boat. There was a suggestion that there's other methods that could be used. I think it was Commissioner Schmidt who said that there is other methods that can be used. That is true, but there's another issue with this situation where the pilings are more appropriate, and it's a traditional means to dock a boat. In wind conditions, which are pretty typical here, we have a southwest wind and it's prevailing, and in the summer months it's often quite windy. When a boat approaches this dock, anyone who's boated knows what it's like. Regardless of how good a boatsman you are, there's going to be times where you misjudge the approach to your dock. And what happens in that case is someone has to fend you off the pier, or you drift away from the dock and have to reapproach the dock. And when you reapproach the dock, the first thing you do is engage the boat in reverse, back up, prop wash. The water's not very deep here, so the proposal for the pilings also has the added benefit of making it so as you approach the dock, if the conditions are such that the wind pushes you, you have the tie-off pilings to basically fend off and keep the boat in its position so that you won't be in that situation where someone may get hurt trying to fend off, or you may, over a continuous use of the dock, have prop wash issues. So the pilings being installed one time should assist in limit those times where the boat has to reapproach or back up in reverse and reapproach. So that was the other major reason why the applicant wanted the pilings, to keep the boat from going underneath the dock and to more safely approach and be able to get into the slip in different wind conditions. The balance of the letter talks about what are the real impacts, and are they cumulative, and are they significant to land under the ocean or land containing shellfish. And the letter comes to the conclusion that there really is no significant adverse impact to land under the ocean or land containing shellfish. And there's really no cumulative impact. And that was quantified in the letter. Each 10-inch diameter timber piling has a footprint that penetrates the ground of 1/2 of a square foot, or 6 square inches. So there's 4 proposed here. That means there's a permanent elimination of 2 square feet of bottom area. To put that in sort of relative terms, if you look at what is typically referred to as the water sheet of the property, that term's used when describing the land in front of a property that's controlled by the property owner, and in this case, it would be their frontage and property line to property line out to the end of the existing dock. That water sheet, or that area of bottom, if you will, is 3,000 square feet. So in terms of a percentage, 2 square feet as a percentage of 3,000 square feet of the water sheet, or the land controlled by the owner, is only 0.7%. Not 7%, I'm sorry, 0.07%. 0.07%. It's really de minimis. And then to take that a step further, we actually did a calculation on the cumulative impacts, because you may say, well, what about all the other properties? What if other people install pilings? There's a cumulative impact. We did an analysis of the Childs River watershed, if you will, or the westerly side of the branch where Childs River goes up west of Sea Pit, east of Seacoast. And if you looked at every property that has frontage on that water body, and the numbers are in here, and assume that each property had a dock that was 80 feet long, and each dock had 12 pilings, the total square footage in the Childs River watershed, if you will, is 480 square feet. And the area of water sheet is 640,000 square feet. So that number's right in line with this. It's 0.08%. So I don't really think that the piling installation causes a cumulative impact that's measurable and significant to the entire water body. And when on balance compared to allowing the applicant to better tie his boat, more safely tie his boat, prevent damage to his boat, prevent prop wash, I think on balance it's reasonable for you to consider these pilings and allow them to be installed. And that's all I have to say on the matter, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Jen, did you have any questions?
Yeah, question, a couple comments. While it's interesting that the pilings are only 480 square feet of Childs River, pilings are associated with a use. So if we're gonna start, calculating square footages and things like that, then I'd like to see the calculation of the square footage on all the docks in Childs River between the docks themselves and the pilings, and what that space is. Because that is the space that is being used. That is the space that is being impacted because of the installation of these pilings. You cannot just look at the pilings. You cannot just look at the pilings going in the ground. You have to look at the area of land under ocean and land containing shellfish between the pilings and that dock, because that's why those pilings are going in. That theory you need to look at. That's the use associated with them. So I wouldn't bring this up if they hadn't been brought up. So if you're going to take into consideration the square feet of just the pilings, you need to take into the consideration the square foot of the overall use of those structures. This dock was put in because the original structure was unsafe. It was seasonal. It had pipe pilings in it. It wasn't appropriate for the owner's use. Now this dock is not appropriate for the owner's use. It goes back. It's just one, it's like a creep on a land. It's one thing after the other. And this board really has to start taking a very hard look at docks, pilings, and how you regulate the activities in these water bodies. Do I think docks and pilings have impacts? Cumulative ones? Yes, I do. The use associated with these, many times going up Childs River, anyone who go up there, see the amount of boats, see the amount of traffic, see the amount of mini marines, anything going up there, there is an impact on the environment. That said, if you don't want the calculation of all the square foot area, that's it, you can just go with 4 pilings. But I was actually very encouraged by Ed's comments last week that there was a difference. There was alternatives to the piling installation. If someone is not the most experienced mariner out there, there are other alternatives. Without continually placing more structures in here. When people put a dock in and realize that they just can't function on that dock. That's why I brought up in the last hearing, the use of, seasonal structures, the use of bubblers, we're gonna see that again. So, just food for thought, that's all.
Any other questions? I have a comment.
Yeah, I had a couple questions, Mike. The new pilings you're putting in, one of them's 3 foot on center from the abutters piling, and the other one's 4 foot on center from the piling. Obviously, you're gonna vibrate these in. So, I don't know what honestly, I didn't look at the regulations, if this is part of the dock structure, is this? Would pilings be part of the dock? Is that how they look at it? Because aren't they supposed?
That's how we
All
look
right,
at it.
well, aren't we supposed to not be so many feet from the lot line? I mean, aren't they supposed to be 10 foot off the lot line? Okay, so it doesn't meet that, at least on her side, not on the south side.
Well, you gotta qualify that without getting a letter from a neighbor not objecting.
Well, I think that lady objected quite strongly the other night.
Well,
So-
I think the woman who's a good neighbor was confused and thought that she was losing the rights of her pilings. I think that's what I heard.
No, she was actually very worried about the damage these new pilings are going to do to her pilings. That was in
Actually,
her
what first happened was the applicant was proposing to remove her pilings without her knowledge and reinstall them.
Well, it's
And
all
when that was
irrelevant.
brought
It's
to
all
their
irrelevant.
attention,
If it's
put
within
new
10
ones in.
feet, we need a letter from her. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
okay.
We don't know what
And
her
then-
view is.
And then the distance between the dock and the proposed pilings is 15 feet. My biggest issue with this whole project in front of us was this dock came in front of us as a little grandfathered dock. And it was, and a lot of the work that was done on it was to, I'm not gonna say to avoid, but it didn't come under the criteria of a new dock. So it didn't have to meet water depth, it didn't have to meet shellfish survey, and now here we are. Obviously, the boats are getting bigger, because if it was the little teeny seasonal pipe floating dock, they probably didn't have a boat that needed tie-off
It
piles.
couldn't float under it.
It couldn't float under it. So we now, that's what you said,
Well,
that they're
no,
going
well-
underneath the dock.
Yeah, because it's a smaller boat. It's a smaller boat. You're
You
making
told
my
me in the,
point.
what was the size of the boat?
The boats that have always used that dock are probably 22 feet or less. And they
Okay,
have low,
and-
the gunnel goes underneath, and then when the tide comes up, it gets caught. That's one major problem. Docking of the boats was the other problem.
And can I ask you a question? I don't mean to cut you off, Mark, but was the design specification, I mean, did the applicant look at it before he approved it? I mean, you came in, you presented it to us, I'm
Yeah,
sure
but
the applicant.
people aren't all expert boaters. He was a new boater. He discovered that he could use some help with some tie-off pilings. I think really what you need to consider is, does this have an adverse significant impact to the bottom? Not whether or not you.
I want to make a comment.
I know,
I
I
want to
do-
make a comment
okay.
on that from my expertise, which is a marine ecologist. And that is, any kind of a hard surface in an area like this, which is which is primarily a soft substrate, provides an opportunity for, unfortunately, the major organisms that colonize there are invasives, including invasive, and provides habitat for things like crabs and fishes that predate on shellfish.
Mhm.
And That's one, from a biological point of view. And then from just a physical oceanographic point of view, anytime you put pilings in water, you're changing the flow of water in that area, which potentially could be changing the nature of the sediment that's around that.
Yeah, I understand that, but you also have to ask yourself if it's a significant adverse impact. And if you try to quantify it in terms of percentages, I say it's not. If you feel the way you do, I will never convince you otherwise, but I'm asking you need to consider whether the installation of those pilings is a significant adverse impact to the bottom. And at 0.07%, I say no. If what you said is true and very important, which I don't doubt you, then you should not allow any docks in Falmouth. You should have a prohibition.
There you go, sign me up.
You don't, though. That's the point. You don't.
Yeah, I think, Mike, what's important is that we get information to make a decision on this, and it'll be a deliberation of the
Yeah.
board as to whether this
I understand
is an
that.
increase in use of the dock. Is this,
But
go on.
we're just getting back to what Jen said, though, as far as usage, it is being used anyway now. He's just providing, I guess, a more stable way of approaching and leaving the dock.
Well, that's a matter for
But I
deliberation.
mean, we're trying to figure out impact, aggregate impact. It is already going to be used no matter what, so.
Right.
The area we're talking about.
Right.
All right, and then I had to finish, because at
Sorry.
first I was getting to the 3 foot and 4 foot on center, and then the length of the boat. So if you take your scale and you see the distance between the two pilings, I guess I can't understand how the boat gets underneath and the gunnels get banged up, because the boat is 16 feet long. The bents are,
The bent's a 16, the boat's longer. I think
I'm
that's what
sorry,
you're trying to say.
right. So if you have a fender out, the piling is gonna hold the boat, it's not gonna go underneath. I mean, I don't know how they tie the boat up, but maybe a course in tying off boats would be far more
It's not,
prudent.
you can't belittle the applicant.
I'm not belittling
He
them,
is
but
telling you factual information. And
We can
again,
believe a boat can float underneath there. We also believe, since all of us have worked on boats, that you could put cleats on that dock and
just tie the
a
boat off the
fender
pile.
system that would keep
The
it from
piles
doing
will
that.
keep
I'm
it from
not
going
disagreeing.
underneath.
I'm just saying, in this situation, whether you believe there's a better way or not, you're charged with determining if 4 pilings, 2 square feet, 0.07% the bottom area is a significant adverse impact.
Actually-
Because we can argue all night long about better ways to tie.
Well, right, and we understand that. Let's
I
not
don't-
argue that
I'm not-
tonight.
The next question, Mike, then, if the purpose is to tie the boats off, and it's not just the pilings that you say have no cumulative effect, but it's the constant scouring from the boats. And when you get tie-off piles, you get bigger boats, because it makes it easier to bring a bigger boat in. So can we condition the size of the boat? I mean, we've only
Sure,
got.
absolutely.
Oh,
No, we
and we can
can't.
enforce it, sure, I'm sure.
Well, you can't always
Because we- I mean,
say,
in
if
theory,
we
you
can't
can, in
enforce
practice, you
it,
can't.
therefore we can't make a
Right.
condition. That's
Well,
not the
I know.
applicant's fault.
1.7 feet of water.
And you can't always say it's the town's fault to enforce, it's the town's duty to
This is
enforce
all,
something.
these are all things that can be
You can go round
discussed
and
in
round.
deliberation.
Yes, but the problem with deliberation is we don't get to talk.
Well,
That's not fair.
we've heard you talk, Mike. I think everyone here
We
knows
know
your
what you're
position
proposing.
loud and clear. We know what we're proposing, and you know what the justification for what you're proposing.
I don't want to close the hearing
You don't want to close it?
because I need to provide you with a letter for the
She
neighborhood.
has
You
to-
do need to
Or
provide
I
us
need
with
to
the letter.
remove those pilings. And I don't want to run the risk of having some other basis for you to deny this if I didn't provide the letter. So,
Yeah, you do need to provide the letter.
or I need to take those pilings on that side. I have to talk to my client. I don't consider the pilings part of the structure. That's why I didn't try to get a letter. It's not I don't know that I can get a letter, but I wasn't fearful of trying to get a letter. I didn't think I needed one. In fact, her pilings are over the property line extended. So
Yeah.
are they
Oh, I-
licensed? How'd they get there?
Those pilings are actually licensed
Well,
as
how'd they get
partners.
there? They have a 25.
Talk to chapter 91 about that. I can't
So,
help
you
you
know,
with that one.
When,
Philosophically, we're never gonna agree on how you tie boats and if it's, but
Probably
I just want you to consider if 2 square feet, 0.07% is a significant adverse impact.
That's not what I look at,
Okay.
but we can discuss that in deliberation.
No, but you do need that letter from the abutting
I do.
property anyway.
Would you and Jen come up with a date, and then we'll,
If I don't have it by next week, I'm not gonna get it. As long as you don't need one prior.
It's up to the board, I don't need one prior from a letter from the abutter.
everybody all right with that? May I have a
Like, try to get it to me
A motion?
4 o'clock on Wednesday. You know, like Monday, Tuesday.
the motion will be to continue this hearing until May 16th.
So moved.
Courtney?
Second.
Courtney, Ted?
And
Okay,
that's for the issuance of a letter from the abutting property owner.
correct.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Ronald and Janice McHugh, 52 Mattapan Street, East Falmouth, for permission to construct a 4-foot by 110-foot pier walkway with 13 10-inch diameter pilings, 4 6-inch by 6-inch posts, support timbers, railings, the 6-foot by 16-foot L section to remove a deck and replace with pervious pavers, remove a timber and plant with native species and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, this board continues this project for a number of issues. One, you all remember that with that little deck issue that was on the property, the applicant has since taken the deck reconstruction and the bank stabilization off the plan. So now you're solely looking at the installation of the dock and perch pond.
Okay.
Okay, that said, I'm gonna offer 2 comments before Mr. Borselli makes his presentation.
And before
They're to
Maury tells us.
address- Yeah, and they're to address 2 comments that were made last week. One
Okay,
comment-
before you do
Okay.
that, Maury, tell us who's on the quorum, please.
Ted, Mike, Maury, Tom, Ed, and Courtney.
Okay. The first comment was made by Mr. Borselli in his letter in addressing DMF's comment letter. And you quoted in your letter, Mike, that the DMF's comments letters are not based on facts or scientific references, and that's simply not true. They do have scientific references, and I have a list of those references that are used to supply these letters. So just want to clarify that.
It wasn't referenced in their letter, that was my point.
It's referenced in most letters they send out. They didn't reference in that the standard list of references they always use. Then in Perlman's Guide to Permitting Small Pile Supported Docks and Piers, Bosch and Turner's Dependency of Fishery Species on Salt Marshes, the Role of Food and Refuge Estuaries, and Bowman, Rogerson, Ritter, and Turnside, Environmental Impacts of Long Piers on Tidal Salt Marshes in Maryland, Vegetation, Soil, and Marsh Surface Effects, and that was in the Wetlands Journal. My second comment goes to Mr. Schmidt, who made the comment that DMF got on the bandwagon a little late in Perch Pond.
Yep, and you chewed me out on that one.
Yeah, can I have the evidence to back it up, Ed? They provided me with 6 comment letters they've written over the past years for docks in Perch Pond, not counting this one.
So why
Okay,
didn't they
6 out
appeal
of
when
the
we approved
7
these docks?
6 out of the 7 of those letters have the statement that the proliferation of docks in Perch Pond is going to have an impact.
Okay.
They are not a regulatory agency when it comes to looking at docks and piers. They are when it comes to fisheries, but not when it comes to permitting docks and piers. They offer you guidance, they advise you, they give you their recommendations and their guidance on the impacts to the fisheries based in science. So that's the other comment I have to make is that.
We just gotta make sure that we all see these.
Because I've seen the language from DNF over and over again before this board.
You recall that I asked that the letter to be read at the last
Yep.
meeting. We
And
don't always
and I have
see
all the
these,
rest
and
of
I
them.
think we have to work a little
we
harder to
submit
make
them
sure
into
that
the
doesn't
file?
happen.
Yep.
Can we submit those into the file?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we have,
The two comments that just kind of got me thinking last week, and I just needed to clarify those. One
Ed,
for
we
the
have been
board and
getting
one
them,
for
which
Mr.
has
Borselli.
been good. In the last week or two, we have gotten them, and it's helpful to have it before the hearing.
Yes, and I did
So I won't
ask
have any more
Teresa,
excuses.
usually, Ed, that the letter just comes through the staff and goes in the file, but I have asked her to start submitting since they come to us electronically now through email, I've asked her to just forward those letters to you, so you have that information.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem. So, that said, the deck and most of my concerns with the project have been removed as far as the deck reconstruction. So you guys are solely looking at the dock. We went through my concerns with the L versus the T. You're not gonna meet the 25-foot setback, right, Mike? If you do the T instead of the L at the end.
Right.
Okay. So I think most of my comments regarding the dock were addressed in, you did submit a revised harbor master's letter with the correct plan date, because the plan date was different than the,
Yes.
thing. So that's,
Should I speak?
You may.
For the record, Mike Borselli, representing the applicant. We did get a new letter
That came to us too.
from the harbor master, like, so there's the dates on the plans reconcile. Jen is correct in that, frankly, we were kind of surprised that most of the focus of the project was on the deck and the shorefront protection, which is definitely a big concern to the applicant. They don't know what to do yet. So they can't, in a timely manner, figure out what to do. So we've eliminated that right now from the application. They've just purchased the property less than, probably 2 months ago now. They want to look at it, talk to people, talk to local contractors, consider options, and leave well enough alone on the deck and the bank until they have a better idea about what to do. It's not an imminent threat of failure, but it's definitely something that needs to be looked at sometime, probably in the next 2 or 3 years maybe. So instead of complicating and bogging down the rest of the application, we made a decision to eliminate it from the application. And what we should have done before someone calls me on it is taken that right off the plan, because we're not going to be doing we're definitely not doing a pervious paver patio, I can tell you that. On this, I know there's times where it's appropriate, but I heard loud and clear that it's not on this case. And since we're not doing anything right now, please ignore that standard detail.
can you just supply me with a new plan with the revised date of 4/23 that I'm looking at, Mike, without that detail? Okay, thanks.
So that leaves us with the dock. And I got a new harbor master letter. I also looked at, I think I misspoke when I said I permitted 9 docks in Dredge Pond, and since 2003, I think it's 8. This, I think, would be the 9th. And I have all the letters from all the different ones. Some of them do mention, and it's the same exact language about the town said they would not provide, they would prohibit any more docks. The town, not private individuals. Some of them don't have that in it at all. Some of them have the typical things that say, you know, outboard power boats draw between 1.5 and 2 feet to the tip of the motor skeg. Prop dredging may occur, barges may bottom out, you know, the things that they typically concern themselves with. So all those letters, some of them don't have that language. Some of them don't have those other typical, what I always refer to as boilerplate concerns that you see on these. But our letter talks about the proliferation of docks. I mean, I'm used to seeing that. And our letter also talks about some of the concerns, and it references land-based construction equipment transiting the coastal bank and intertidal areas during construction will damage, but we're not gonna transit the coastal bank. I mean, there's some of the things that they speculate could cause damage simply just will not be occurring, and they don't occur when you build a dock. That being said, we went to great pains, and the applicant spent a lot of time, energy, and money to take all the steps necessary to ensure that this dock meets all of your performance standards, water depth, shellfish issues, crossing of salt marshes with sunlight penetrating decking, lateral access underneath, harbor master letter. This dock, like the other ones, in fact, this one right here is one of them, and then the motel right here, and then a bunch on the other side. I mean, they all meet your performance standards. What would make this one different, I can't see what would make this different, so that you would come to a conclusion that it didn't meet your performance standards, and somehow this one dock should not be approved when the other ones were. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, does anyone have any more information they need from Mike on this particular project?
Just one question, Mike. So your mitigation for this dock is to be cohogs and not soft shell clams, which are what you were impacting?
Yes, and as I've said
Thank you.
before, and I think it's in the minutes from the last hearing, and I think we all know, even Chuck Martinson recognizes it, it's difficult at best, impossible most often to propagate soft shells. So we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. So we realize also that the soft shell clams are bridged. The pilings are spaced so that we're not driving pilings in the nearshore areas where the soft shell clams are. So, you know, that, and you've asked us to do that on other docks, and we anticipated that, and we increased the spacings so that that could happen on the pilings. So we can't mitigate for soft shells by providing propagation or soft shell spat, if that's even a correct term. I mean, I know that you propagate them differently, and predation's a main problem, but we don't have a other solution. And the same thing occurred on the other docks in here. We talked about this. We've talked about this a lot.
Are there any other questions? Then I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, seeing no further questions, all in favor of closing this hearing and taking it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike.
Does he have to submit those others?
Which
They read to
letters?
us?
What
He
letters?
read letters, basically. They have to go in our file.
Did you just read letters?
Those are the
Okay.
Mike, do you want to submit the letters that you showed them from your other docs that you submitted? It's basically probably the same ones I submitted.
Okay.
They gave me 6 docs, so.
Okay. Just making sure.
Continued hearings under a request to amend the order of conditions. P&B Realty Trust, 32 Cape Codder Road, Falmouth. Request to amend the existing order of conditions, DEP 253763, to add a 16-foot by 20-foot deck off the back porch, install 80 square feet of native mitigation shrubs and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my comments until after Mr. Rogers' presentation.
Good evening, Jeff.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Ryther with BSS Design. I have the abutters here.
Thank you, Jen.
Do you have it? Yeah.
Okay, this is on Cape Codder Road, a proposal that you saw months ago. The house is well underway. It's all framed, enclosed. The applicant wishes to change some of the landscaping on here, so this is a preliminary plan, by the way, so it's not fully drawn out, but what we have is the top of the coastal bank, the TCB here. It's on the original plan, but this is sort of a scaled-back version of our CAD file. Here's the 75-foot setback, the A zone, and then the 25-foot B zone, which cuts through here. This project required mitigation for this piece of porch and this part of the house, which was planted here prior to the issuance of the building permit as conditioned. So what the applicant would like to do now is to put in a series of patios and a walkway and another patio, and then down to the lower level walkout patio area. And so that equals 529 square feet within the B buffer. This is a stone type paver. There's a little note, it's hard to read, I'm sorry, but it does say that it does have a loam joint. It's going to be a wide joint, with grass in the jointings. So will be somewhat pervious, but impervious pavers themselves. Anyway, so that was 529 square feet proposed, and then put back is the 1,058 square feet here adjacent to the already planted buffer. Now this was conditioned to have bayberry and beach plum. So we'd just like to continue that same species out in here. That's about it. It's just twice the area of this here. Okay?
Okay, thanks,
That's
Jeff.
it.
Jen, do you have any questions?
Jeff, it says progress print, so you're still developing your plan?
Well, it's a progress print because the, it hasn't, it's early on. It's not fully called out as far as the products throughout. Most of the lot is out of jurisdiction.
No, I understand that, so the area in our jurisdiction isn't going to change at all?
No, it's just it's an early plan. It just shows the proposed grading and plant locations, patios, driveways.
Okay, so it's not going to change?
Yeah, this won't change.
Okay. All right, sounds fine.
Yes.
I think that in conditioning this, we should specify that we understand that this is a preliminary plan and that the final plan should not deviate.
In our jurisdiction.
Yeah, within our jurisdiction.
Okay, Jen, you got that down?
Yeah.
So my question, Jeff, where in the planting, there are no legends of the plant, so are we going, when we deliberate, are we going to make that up as we go, or?
He just said what he wanted.
Okay.
Well, you could say, you can continue on in the special conditions that the same special conditions apply to this that applied to this
The
other
other.
area of lighter green here, because it's, your basic 3-gallon, 3-foot on center, and it was planted, and it was well planted and maintained the whole time, so it's a healthy buffer.
Okay, got that?
Yep.
Anything else? It'd be nice if they put Buzzards Bay instead of just, you actually don't know where you are on this. There's not even a locus or anything. It would be helpful for.
I know. Well,
You
you
know, I
almost
know
have
it's
to-
just a progress plan.
north is that direction.
I know.
There is a north arrow on it, yeah.
Yes.
It's
I mean,
pretty,
there is this plan that,
Yeah.
is a full guide for the preliminary landscape
that
plan.
was just a pretty atrophic progress plan, but
Yeah, it is a little
it
weird.
is what it
I gotta
is.
admit.
We got the gist of it.
Little sketchy.
Very sketchy.
It's a sketch.
It's a sketch.
It's a
It's not a
sketch.
bad sketch, yeah.
All right, with that,
I'll make a motion to close. Oh,
you have a question, or you're going to make a
I was
motion?
going to make a motion, but Maury made a, go ahead, Maury.
make a motion to close and take under advisement.
Second.
So Maury and Courtney, do you want to be in on the motion, or do you have a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
I don't know why this is sticking in my claw, but it says not for construction progress print. And my only concern is that now that we've made an adjustment, I understand the planting and the buffer, but the contractor, I just don't I'm not totally uncomfortable, but, you know, I can just see this.
Well, we can get you the final product before we start, of course. Maybe that can be,
I think,
I'm just writing that down.
I think that would be an
Final plan
appropriate
is gonna be
condition.
submitted.
Yeah, I think that would, just to clarify so that there's no
This opening.
compliance concerns in the future.
If that plan deviates 1 inch from this progress print,
You're gonna come down.
I'm just not gonna sign off on the building permit, and you'll see another amended,
okay.
notice in front of you, because this is not gonna be the status quo with these progress prints and Mark and I reviewing them on the other end. No. You're the board to make the decision. So this progress print deviates 1 inch from the final plan that I get, it comes
Well,
back to you.
I don't think it should, because, he's got all the hardscapes that he's,
Yeah, that's fine, Jeff, I'm just saying.
when I say the
But it's not
hardscapes,
to
we're
you.
talking about this area here. So I
Correct.
don't believe any of that will change.
I don't think everybody's ever dared present this board with a progress print before I started.
I know.
I know, that bothered me when I saw it, but I got it last Wednesday, and I
me too.
submitted it thinking, well,
Let's see what kind of
the
mood they're
math
in.
is right
Let's see
on
what
it,
kind of
so.
mood they're in tonight. Having said that, there's a motion and a second on the table, I do believe, to close this hearing and take it under advisement. You might get out of here with this, Jeff.
Just nice.
Could be a first.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
How about that? Okay.
See?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Vote orders of conditions. M6 Point Trust, care of,
Madam Chairman,
oh,
go on.
care of Ann and Leon Piatelli, 25 Point Road, North Falmouth.
Yes, you would close this hearing. The landscape architect did submit a revised plan addressing your concerns regarding the cedar spacing, trees to be spaced 10 inches on the center, erosion planting, bearberry is going to be substituted with the bayberry on that really steep slope, and the limit of work line was revised to correspond with homes in the ground. So just so that you're all comfortable that the revised landscape plan has already been submitted.
Okay,
And
good.
if you'd like to look at that more.
Well, did it have the, I think the other question we had was that it was different than Mike's plan.
Regarding the limit of work,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
limit of work and,
revised
okay,
it
yeah.
It was-
So,
to
was
reflect Mike
that
McGrath's,
was
Yeah.
homes in
And-
McGrath, excuse me, limit of work.
and the fill, wasn't there something about the fill down on the stairway? Didn't you ask that?
Yes. Where's my, yeah, whether or not they were gonna add fill, and then Chris said, do you want me to add fill? And you said, I'm not gonna design the project, yes, it's that little back and forth.
So what did she come up with?
She
What was
didn't
her
ask,
design, or did she just?
she didn't ask for Phil.
I don't think she asked for
She
fill.
didn't
She's
ask
gonna,
for Phil.
all right, she's gonna leave that gouge, okay.
Yep.
So make it, I would make a finding that no fill will be brought on site down to the stairway. I mean, if that's what she wants.
Yeah, and if she gets there and decides she
Decides it,
needs
then
it,
she
she
can
can
amend
come
it.
for an amendment.
Right.
Ed?
Other than that, I don't think it was a lot of the spacing issues that have been resolved in the landscape plan. It was the species issues on the bank, but as far as the raise and rebuild of the house,
No issue.
Well,
No
a lot
issue.
of it was out of our jurisdiction,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
Ed,
because
Ed
it's,
has a question.
Yeah, Jen, did I hear you say the trees are 10 inches?
10 feet.
10 feet, thank
10
you.
feet on set.
I think you said inches.
I'm
She did.
sorry about that.
All right. That sounds a little bit better to me, thank you.
Okay?
Be like putting that pen.
Yeah,
Oh,
what's the
quorum
quorum?
on that, Courtney, I'm
I don't know.
sorry.
I was here. Oh, and make sure you put all work by hand on the stairway, we said.
Yep. Ted, Mike, Maury, Betsy, Tom. Ted, what was that, Maury?
These were the things we said, all work by hand on stairway,
Yeah.
erosion mitigation, no irrigation in our jurisdiction, except for the plantings in, that usual
Yeah.
stuff. Plant in the existing grass,
Yep.
not mulched. Let's see, new signature page, I don't know what
That
that
was
was.
submitted.
Jute mat erosion down.
Front of the stairs.
For
Yes,
the
by
stairs, by the stairway.
Because they have the what, the one that wants to live right there.
Okay, that was all that was in my notes.
Okay,
I might buy this one.
I'll entertain a motion.
It's full.
Tighter plants.
Make a motion to accept as discussed.
Oh, the quorum.
I just read it
Yep.
to you.
Oh, I didn't hear.
Okay, I didn't hear it either. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Joseph Palermo, 105 Quaker Road, West Falmouth.
This was, Warwick's plan, the deck additions, and then one of the special conditions was, they wanted to redo the existing deck before they do the planting, because they're trying to get it done for an event this summer, and then afterwards, they were gonna do the planting.
Yeah, they can do that.
And then do the other
They can do that.
portion of the project.
Yeah.
But it was pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Yep. And we just had the plant and grass, no mulch, drip irrigation till plants are
Yeah.
established, okay. The same form, I think.
Yep.
I make a motion to accept the,
Order.
order as
Read and discussed.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept the order as read and discussed, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. N-Star Electric Company, Lot 100, 400 Oyster Pond Road, formerly 54 Oyster Pond Road, Woods Hole.
Same form, same part, and this was the ANRAD, we're gonna accept the flags that they, placed out there by number. It was a fairly conservative delineation. We also are going to make the finding that there were, a number of vernal pool species that were observed, both visually and on site, so that in the future that will be considered a vernal pool under your bylaw. It's not certified at this point, but under your bylaw, it does not have to be certified.
Okay?
Okay?
Any other questions? Any questions? Any comments?
I make a motion to accept as the conditions as read and discussed.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept the order of conditions as discussed, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Other, before we go to other business, or the first other business, could we vote the minutes of April 18th?
Can you?
Yeah, I mean, you gave them to us. Did it, I mean,
I'm
I read
sorry,
them.
I did the agenda, Teresa was out last week. We didn't advertise it, so can you hold off on voting it? Courtney, are you okay? You have the broken chair.
You all right, Courtney?
No, I'm fine. It's the
All right.
chair that isn't fine.
I would hold off, Madam Chairman, just so I can put it on the agenda.
All right. Other business, discuss salt marsh restoration submitted by UMass Dartmouth.
I emailed this all to you last week. This was the submittal that was provided by the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth.
I did not.
The restoration and remediation plan, as well as the, Mike, did you get that by email? I sent it all to you in an email dated May 1st.
Does anybody have any comments?
You were supposed to, under the order of conditions, go through this, accept it, and then,
Enforcement.
get a third-party reviewer to sign off on it. They were to supply the third-party reviewer names to you for consideration. They've done that. They are Dr. Teal, which I think this board has already voiced their opinions on.
These were supposed to be three independent
Reviewers.
reviewers, and I just want to tell you that none of these people are independent of Dr. Howe's,
I was gonna just ask that.
and two of the three people are not salt marsh restoration people. I was very upset when I saw this list, and I think we need to have Jen call Pat and inform UMass Dartmouth that they haven't fulfilled their responsibility.
I make a motion to have that done.
I'll second it.
Second.
I motioned.
I did.
Any,
I was wondering whether we should schedule another visit ourselves, because there's a lot of assumptions in these letters that everything was done properly, and it should be, I mean, by Dr. Teal and other people, that this should be going right in by now.
yeah, I'd like to make another field trip.
I mean, June, I don't know.
How about
That
first week of
brings me to
June?
my
I mean,
next
given
point.
enough time.
I'm away till June 1st.
Yeah, but I mean, just to see, I mean, we saw the nature of the
Right,
restoration.
I would,
And,
I would like to do that. Let's
I
plan.
mean, I think it's more important than listening to assertions from people that I don't think even went to see the restoration.
I'd like to bring your attention to something else. We received a letter yesterday from the School of Marine Science and Technology dated May 4th to the town of Falmouth, to the property owner, which I think they inadvertently sent it to us instead of Board of Selectmen.
Could you read
And
it?
it says, on request of the Falmouth Conservation Commission, we would like to notify you that CMAS personnel will be in the Sippawissa Marsh to monitor the progress of the restoration pertaining to the research project of the graduate student on the following dates: May 18th, June 15th, July 13th, and August 17th.
Well, you should call tomorrow and
And they
say
never
that we
told
haven't
us.
given permission.
Should unforeseen circumstances such as significantly inclement weather occur, it is anticipated monitoring will occur within a day or two on either sides of these dates.
I wonder if Salt Pond and everybody else got one of those.
Sure they did, but it was never CC'd to the Concom. I think we got this by accident.
And who signed it?
Dale Goringer Toner,
Okay.
Who I think was the
Senior
legal.
Research Associate at Department of Estuary and Ocean Sciences. I do believe they work with Dr. House. They're in the Coastal Systems Group.
Would you please inform them? We have a motion on the table, but
For me to talk to Pat and let her know that they have not fulfilled their obligations.
yeah, and then I think we need, and she needs to send a letter to them saying we need 3 independent people, and we will choose one of those people.
Word
we just
underline,
invoke-
independent.
Can't we invoke that we pick somebody and they pay for it? I mean, we have that in our regulations.
Yes.
Well, do we for enforcement orders? We do for orders of conditions.
I don't know. Ask Pat.
We wrote it independent of the university.
Well, it
I'm
doesn't
inclined to
matter.
go along with the
You
idea
can't
that
have
we
somebody
appoint our own.
evaluate your project
I
if you
understand.
have, if you
No, I
are a
understand that.
close colleague.
Called a conflict of interest. Maybe they should look it up on the.
Which is well-known in academia.
Well, Dr. House, for some reason, doesn't understand that. And this is what, 5 months now we've been
Six.
dealing with?
We're gonna be
6
going
months.
6 months, December.
So, do you have any,
Words of wisdom.
okay.
Do we know anyone who would be acceptable?
There are at least 3 people have given me names of 3 people who are working here on the Cape in salt marsh restoration projects. And so I'll work with Jen, and we could perhaps provide those names to them.
And it also says prior to the submittal to the Conservation Commission, basically, they really haven't actually followed the order, because if you remember what your enforcement order said, number 1 was cease action, number 2, all the activities shall be corrected. A, within 14 days of your enforcement order, they shall develop and submit a restoration monitoring plan to be implemented immediately after Concom. Yes, you did that, Bob. And submittal shall include the survey site plan of the impacted parcels, which I did not see.
I didn't see a site
in
plan.
there. They did not provide a surveyed site.
I haven't ever seen.
Yeah.
There's never been one.
Then they were supposed to provide names, which you were supposed to
Yeah, would you
choose one. Yeah, they did not.
Would you
select-
please list these?
Yep. And then you were supposed to choose that. That person was then to review the plan.
Correct.
And sign off on it prior to them going out onto the field on May 18th.
Correct. Please write a memo to that effect
Yes.
to Pat tomorrow and ask Pat to act as soon as possible. And also,
I'll be talking with Pat tomorrow anyway.
and also call the university, UMass Dartmouth, and say that they haven't been given permission to do this, so it's a little premature.
I will call them, I will let the property owners know.
Thank you, that was.
I will also let, well, the town of Falmouth's property owners, so I will walk upstairs tomorrow.
And who is Pat?
Pat Harris is their associate town council.
Ed?
Yeah, and I heard something in that letter that you read, talked about personnel would be there. I think anytime we're approving personnel, I'd like to know how many people are going to be out there, because one of my big concerns is all of this activity out there, everybody running all over the bloody marsh, there'll be nothing left by the time we get done.
Did I also give you, all a copy of the letter that was attached to that? I think I did.
What letter?
The letter from their council. I believe I did, I just can't find it. Oh, here it is.
So there's a motion and second on the table for Jen to write a memo to Pat and to discuss this with Pat tomorrow. And all the areas which have not been fulfilled in the enforcement order should be detailed in that letter.
But I think we can be somewhat magnanimous if we can sort of suggest some
Well, that's not part
people
of the,
that we would be
no, I agree,
comfortable
but
with.
that's not part of the motion.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the motion, and that was made and seconded. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Okay, and then.
And then in addition to that, I agree, I'll make some calls.
Thank you.
I'll make some calls
It'll
while
just facilitate things a little bit.
while I'm in the
Just
car with Michelle in
There
the
you
next
go.
couple of days, and seeing Jen at the
I think
relay.
it will facilitate things and it will, yes.
Yeah.
We need to get this done.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
checks in the mail too.
Yeah.
I'm quickly losing,
They're very disingenuous.
Patience.
That was way back in
That happened with me
January.
a long time ago.
I'm not saying much because I don't want to get
I know.
amped up.
They've always had permission. They don't understand sort of what it's fussing about, but they're responding as best they can as many experts as possible. And it makes it sound like we're, I mean,
Well, that's
they
normal.
never had permission.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, next week, we have two of our board members, interestingly enough, not here tonight, but who have agreed to take over our responsibilities to other boards, and so we're going to have the election next week. Mary has agreed to be on CPC, and Arthur has agreed to be on Coastal Ponds. So welcome them,
What was the first? Mary.
Mary,
Schumacher.
CPC,
Community
capital
Preservation
letters,
Committee.
and Arthur to Coastal Ponds, so we can congratulate them, we can vote them and then congratulate them next week.
I think it's the Coastal Ponds Management Committee, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Arthur
well,
Aldrich.
the
And
name's
the other one
changed,
is Mary
Schumacher.
Schumacher.
Okay, now there's a motion and a second on the table to adjourn. Did you get that? I know Maury made the motion.
Who seconded?
Who seconded? Tom seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Right?